Hi, good morning or
Um,
evening. Oh,
yeah, it's getting dark here now. Um, so early that it gets dark. Sad. Feels
well,
sad.
soon the solstice is upon us, and that's changes.
Yeah, not long away. That'd be beautiful. So
Mm.
how are you doing at the moment?
I'm doing good. I'm keeping my eye on Bitcoin and the crypto world and seeing what's the latest. It's like this amazing movie script of all this uh letting go. Letting go of systems that are structures that aren't so healthy for us. So I'm keeping my eye on that to see how that all unfolds. Very interesting.
And do you mean that in terms of the Bitcoin space or the wider economic space? What is the thing that's letting go?
Oh, I think the letting go of the Bitcoin space, the crypto space in terms of, I did get caught up with listening to all the things that are falling apart and all these interesting dynamics. Um, and so I'm, yeah, I'm trying to let that go and trying to really, because that's sort of coming from this idea of lack in a way.
Well, when you were speaking, it was making me think, like in terms of what you were listening to. And I think it
Mhm.
is really important to be aware of what we're listening to and what it's feeding in ourselves. And so, are we seeking out knowledge to grow in education? Are we seeking out like top tips to try to grow our investments? Are we is there a sort of greed behind what we're listening to? Is there a fear? And, perhaps there's like things are breaking down and we want to get into that and either gratuitously just like, oh my gosh, like what's going on, or as a perpetuation of like, oh my god, see, this is why it's bad. And you notice that in the sort of COVID time and in any time when there's sort of difficult things happening, there's a kind of sometimes there can be a blend between gratuitous, reading and then something that can actually trigger fear in you, and then you kind of you're drawn to find out more information because suddenly you're worried and you're kind of trying to consume that information. So it's really important to be aware of what we're reading but also why we're reading it,
Yeah.
and that can really, it can really help to kind of to ground us, to reground us, because if we're following just one particular aspect, greed, fear, education, whatever it is, that's going to feed that part of ourselves. And other things will kind of fall away because you're putting your attention in those areas. So it's just, where are you paying attention and being aware of what you're paying attention to and how that affects you. And also perhaps why you're being drawn to look at those things. So when you said maybe it's to do with lack, I was like, maybe it is, but in a kind of a kind of back way. It's like something is kind of being filled in some way by
Yeah.
what you're speaking.
Yeah, I think it's sort of that fear, this and sort of diving deep into that fear. There's somehow that attraction, for whatever reason that is. And I've realized, it's just it's pulling me down, and it's confusing me, and so in order for really to embrace the abundance, the possibility, um, it's time for me to shut down the chaos on Twitter that I'm consuming. Especially right now, because we are starting to get that sense that maybe there's this shift. We've gone through all this upheaval and turmoil and crashing and sort of now there's this starting to come this sense of that shining star where new things can be built from all those ashes. And so it's like, okay, I need to focus more on that kind of outlook. And I get it, it's not the Twitter space, but it's like, who are you following? What are you consuming? Is it to help you educate and feel powerful and come from embrace the sense of possibility, and sort of leaving this lack and this fear and this criticisms and this, saying this person's bad, that person's bad, and not really knowing, or this situation is, I don't know, I want to get away from the sense of judgment and using that energy instead to figure out possibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Is that?
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to focus on the dream, to focus on the possibility,
Yeah.
create who we want to be, what world we want to live in, because where we pay attention to, that thing grows. So if we're paying attention to all of the destruction, all of the demise, all of the hardship, all of the fear, we are kind of perpetuating that in our reality, because we're searching for it and we're finding it, and it helps to kind of reinforce it, and then we find it again. And it's like, okay, so you can kind of sit in this teacup spinning in this space of fear, or you can go, where is it I actually want to go? Do I want to get out of this teacup, and do I want to kind of find that, do I want to start walking into a world that is one that is filled with possibility, with growth, with abundance, with joy, with love? And it starts with you. So it's like, where are you putting that attention? So what are you stepping into? Every moment is a choice. And so, when you're looking at Twitter or whatever you're looking at, and it's kind of, it's fueling one area, I have a choice in this moment to take myself out of the kind of cloud and to go, actually, where is the vision? Where is it I actually want to go? Because this isn't helping me get there, unless you're a journalist, unless you're, it's helping you get educated in a particular way. But if it's just gratuitous, then, or it's just kind of fueling the fear, then it's not serving you. Just and kind of step out and go, actually, where is it I want to go? What energy do I want to be surrounded by? And Bitcoin is such an amazing one like that, because Bitcoin gets stuck. Conversations around Bitcoin get stuck in that cloud. This is happening. This, oh my goodness. And you can kind of play in there for as long as you want, but Bitcoin hasn't changed. Bitcoin that was created in 2008, it's, it has its plan. There are like little, soft changes in there, but it has its trajectory. Ideology hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. It carries on doing its thing. So, that's why also when we get out of the cloud, we're like, oh yeah, no, Bitcoin is still there and Bitcoin is still powerful. So, that's also a choice on how we choose to interact with Bitcoin, and money and all of it. So.
Yeah, I think, hearing you say that makes me think, and I think we might have talked about this in a previous video about, wanting to change my relationship with Bitcoin. Before, it was more of this, oh, you're my savior, or there was this desperation about it, or this naive possibility. And now it's like, oh, I think it's time to have a more mature relationship with Bitcoin. And part of that is going internally into what it is I want. What is my power? Instead of listening to all the power dynamics that are out in the external space, what are the dynamics within me? And where is that power? And then coming from that perspective in terms of relationship with Bitcoin, and then, okay, how does that manifest? And so I think this whole bear market has sort of helped me mature my relationship with Bitcoin. Yeah. I'm growing up. Bitcoin's still the same, but I'm growing up.
That's so powerful to see it in that way, like having that relationship, a relational dynamic, and like they hurt you, it hasn't hurt you, it stayed the same, but something has been hurt. It's like, well, actually, I hate Bitcoin. You're in this like loving relationship. I love Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to save me. It's so amazing, the internal stories we build, the internal experiences we have when the thing itself has never changed. It's just like our reflections that we've put on it. And that's why we talk about projection, because projection is really like when we are in a relationship with someone, they can reflect back certain things, but actually project our beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings onto something else. And specifically when it's a fixed kind of object in a way, it's so much more apparent when we are projecting our stories, or like finding little stories and then like kind of projecting it onto Bitcoin itself, or onto, whatever that system or structure is. But then to come into that better relationship, and how what it really has told you is like, hold on, you are seeing that there's that projection. And so it's like, hold on, I can just take all of that back, come back into myself, reassess the relationship, and be like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is just Bitcoin. Bitcoin hasn't changed. But I love that as a visual to see how we do that with things. Especially something that comes into our life as something new and something that can, can save us, and just how we give it our power. And then when it lets us down, we feel fear. And then when you come into like healthy relationship, you're like, actually, I have my power. And so it's bringing to that sovereignty piece, which is, why I sort of call Bitcoin that golden mirror. It's like it's showing you how to step into sovereignty. It's the most amazing tool. And it's done that for you in this experience in the bear market, when it wasn't fulfilling the desires you wanted from it. And I think it's so interesting because pretty much every single person that has been in this relationship with Bitcoin has experienced a bear market, has experienced a lack of faith, has experienced a feeling of anger or fear or frustration. And this is the growth. And it's like, it's almost like the initiation. If you want to have a relationship with Bitcoin, it's like, you've got to go through that.
Yeah, you have to. And like, so when you're experiencing all this fear and anger, it's then this amazing opportunity for you, even though it's scary, to then dive down into what is that fear, what is that anger, what is that reflecting about who you are, and your relationship with Bitcoin, or your relationship with money, or your relationship with the world. But it's these amazing triggers that I haven't experienced with other entities. And Bitcoin, because it's not just about that relationship with money or fiat, it takes that further, because that is that relationship with sovereignty, the sovereignty that you can find, that it helps guide you towards. So as long as you don't run away from all that fear and anger, you can fall down and like hide under the covers for a while, but then you have to like go deep inside and like face it and figure it out. What is this telling you? Yeah.
And what it's telling you as well, when you said I felt fear, I felt lack. So Bitcoin was going to be the savior, because something in you felt that, fear of what your future would be like without Bitcoin. It's like, oh, thank God Bitcoin exists because it can save me. So there was a feeling in there that you wouldn't be able to save yourself, that you didn't have the value in yourself, that you had to kind of outsource that to something else. And so there is a sense of both lack in there, of like, I can't manifest the life I want. In that way, I need something external to kind of save me from that life, or fear of, not having enough money, or continuing to live along the trajectory you're on. And so it's so interesting how it does, it gives you that reflection, and then you can start to heal that in you. What is it that I fear? Where is that lack? It's not up to Bitcoin to save me. I need to
Mm-hmm.
choose. I need to make different choices. I need to save myself. Or is there anything to be saved from? Is it just, is that just
Yeah.
another construct? Is it just you have a chance to make choices? And what
Mm-hmm.
choices do you want to make that pull you in the direction or take you in a direction that you want to go into? And how do you do that with energy and invitation and possibility? Um,
Mm. Yeah. And I feel like there is that somehow this dynamic that potential now is really showing itself. And I think it's not just with me, in my world, in my life, but I think it's sort of, there's that global sensation, I feel. Um,
I mean, I think people are ready to take their power back, right? Like, and to stop giving it to things like, oh, that will save me, or fiat is
yeah,
destroying me, or the economy is destroying me. That is going to save me. It's like, again, it's putting your power outside yourself. Like, even in the destruction, it's like that thing is going to destroy me. Well, only if you let it, only if you
yeah.
let it do that. How is it that you can change your relationship to that? But Bitcoin, like, really, focuses that in a really high intensity way. So it's focusing on the sovereignty, taking your power back in both a kind of explicit way of owning your money and a kind of deeper level way in terms of the way that you're, why you've gone to Bitcoin, or how you feel about money, or how you feel about something saving you or destroying you. It's like it's reminding you to take the power back in all forms.
Yeah, and it was actually for me, Bitcoin and getting into crypto in general in that space that really got me to even start thinking about my relationship with money, and the fiat system, and my misunderstanding of it. And it was this nebulous thing. And I sort of kept it outside of me, outside of my world. And, um, not a healthy relationship, not really a relationship. Um, and so, I mean, coming to Bitcoin helped just that general sense of getting to know this this energy of money and this dynamic, reconceptualizing this dynamic between that money can give you between other human beings and what they offer. And so it's hard to articulate because I'm still sort of unpacking this whole thing, but Bitcoin like has again held my hand and sort of guided me into this world of just reimagining this whole idea about what money is and this means of exchange of energy. So yeah. There's so much growth, so many things to learn, um, that Bitcoin helps guide you because, like you said, it sort of focuses you. It's sort of this hyper focusing. It's like a magnifying glass where it puts so much into focus.
I totally agree. Your experience, but in order to get there, you can't get there without actually moving through an experience of both education and physical, like, or mental knowing, or psychological knowing, or emotional knowing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this, yeah, it's almost pinpointing something, but to actually get there, to actually make sense of it, takes this kind of very roundabout and kind of intimate and external kind of relationship. It's so interesting. So when you're in it trying to explain it, you, I think that's why, for example, Michael Saylor explains it in so many different ways. He explains Bitcoin in so many different ways because how it lands in you, you can't just conceptualize it. You've got to also feel it. You've also got to experience it.
Yeah.
You've also got to kind of come at it in lots of different ways, like looking at it as kind of from a fiat angle. Okay, well, what is Bitcoin? And from a sovereignty angle, and from an energy angle, from an exchange angle, from a your fears angle, from a future angle. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow. And when you finally see exactly what it's pinpointing, you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's like a complete, it absolutely gets to the point. So
Yeah.
it's really difficult to explain, but yeah, that magnifying glass, like it really does focus.
It's like a relationship, there's always more to unpack and more to learn. And then the deeper you go, the more you appreciate. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to marry Bitcoin. Just kidding. But it's that kind of relationship where you don't know that person initially, but then you get to know them deeper and deeper. And on each date, it's a good date.
Sometimes. It's going to go a little bit badly, and you're like, oh man. And then you realize that maybe it was you.
It's
You
true.
didn't do exactly what you wanted them to do. That's so true. It is a relationship. It is like an intimate relationship. And how, it brings up things in you that you have to work on, but you refuse to recognize it's you until you're kind of forced to, because you
Yeah.
keep coming back. And there's something about Bitcoin that keeps drawing you in. It's like the relationship that you're supposed to have, even when it kind of hurts, even when you feel fear. You realize that there's something deeper here. And so you keep coming back. And then as you do, that relationship builds and grows closer, and it changes you.
Yeah, for sure.
Saying that, I wonder if we do change Bitcoin. Like, I know that, like, not from just the
Hmm.
practical, like developers, like kind of putting little sort of soft forks in, but I wonder if our collective energy engaging with it does change it in some ways. Like, I wonder if there's any kind of reciprocation in that
It
Bitcoin.
changes its price. But I don't think you meant that. But maybe, I don't know if we unpack that. I mean, it's definitely the price that changes.
Yeah. And when I feel like, because we've said it's like this is, I guess it's sort of a static thing, like it's the same thing, it is Bitcoin. But I think the way when you are in relationship with something, like you kind of imagine that there is on an energetic level, there is something that is moving, and maybe it's just the quality of the energy. So when something is new, um, it has a particular energy. Like it might be kind of more contained, more like resourceful, or a little bit like nervous. And you can kind of see that in like the engagement with Bitcoin, where it just like kind of it slowly kind of gets adopted. And people are like, oh, critical of it, not sure. And now, with so many people feeding it and loving it and being inspired by it, it's not just like us, but I feel like it kind of, the way that it's spreading with like gusto, like whether or not people are selling their Bitcoin, some people don't care about Bitcoin, it's still spreading. It's still, inspiring people all around the world. And that inspiration piece is, I think, more prevalent now than maybe it was back then, particularly in terms of its expansion. So it's like it's expanding as we are like embracing it. And I mean, that would be a natural response of us adopting it. But I do feel like there is, it's just, you can kind of see it on an energetic level of just Bitcoin just like rising out and being like, yeah, I'm being appreciated. I'm being kind of welcomed.
Mm. I like that idea of Bitcoin feeling appreciated. But I want to, yeah, I have to think about that some more.
Because we think about it in terms of money, right? So when you hear about the kind of the energetic qualities of money and, not just exchange, but it's like calling it in. So you'll hear about manifestation around money and like having that feeling of abundance and loving money because money loves you. And, money taking kind of on a form of its own, and you can welcome it into your life. You can call that in. Because there's so much money, it's just an energy. And so if you can have a relationship with money then in the same energetic way, we would have the relationship with Bitcoin. And we know it from our perspective, like, wow, I love Bitcoin. But I feel that, just in the same way, if we kind of love on it, like it would, it kind of sparkles in a different way. It kind of responds to us in a different way. It wants to come to us in a different way. Like I just, there's a nature in universe. Like when we emit a particular energy onto our environment, how it kind of sings back to us. And I kind of would love that Bitcoin has its own kind of soul in a way, its own energy frequency. And when you're like, oh, you're so wonderful, it just lights up a little bit more. And maybe just the Bitcoin that's sitting in your wallet, it's just like sparkling a little bit more. But I think it's really interesting to kind of to perceive everything in different layers, to not just sort of just to see things in terms of something's energy or something's solidity, like money. You can say, okay, money in my hand, it's something solid. But when I send money to you online, nothing solid is moving. So if you think about money being solid, you get lost in, well, what is moving? Like what is moving between you and somebody else? And someone will say, well, energy is. And like that's a hard thing to grasp. And particularly that's hard if you can't separate money from the physical form, but it exists in both. And then you have a kind of frequency of money. It's like you have when you've received money that's been given like in a horrible way, well, just take it. You're like, I don't want it. There's this kind of like that money has lost, there's an energy behind the money. It still holds the same value. It's still, let's say, a $10 note. Oh, I don't think you guys have that, but maybe you do. But it's still worth technically the same amount. But the way someone gives it to you can totally change the energy in which you receive it, in what it holds. Yeah. And I know this from people who have inherited money and they've invested it. Like the way they feel about that money is completely different to the money that they've invested that wasn't inherited. You can release that, but it's still, it still has an energy. So I don't know if I'm kind of now confusing it with lots of different energies.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about I don't know, I'm trying to just sort of wrap my head around that, because I connect with that concept of, it depends on how and who gave you this energy, this transaction, and what it brings to you. So it's like not only the energy of the amount of money or value it has in sort of a more objective way, it also attached to that is that energy that it brings with it from that other person or that other entity.
I believe that money still has its own energy frequency, but the way that you give it does affect the person, but it's up to them to decide whether it affects them, right? So if someone gives it to you in like anger and you receive it with their anger, it's that money has stayed the same, but the energy is present in that. And like you will respond to that. And the same when you give it away and it kind of, oh God, then take it. Or if you're like, oh, I can't afford it, but like you're taking the last penny, and like the guilt that's passed on with that. And it doesn't, every time that money is passed on for like centuries, it's going to like hold this guilt. It's more in the kind of intimate relationship of transaction. And so if we can receive with love and be like, thank you for that gift, like, when someone is giving us something, to really appreciate, to try to replace any kind of feeling of, greed or lack or angst. It's just like or self-value, like nothing about that. It's just like, oh, I'm just receiving this beautiful money with love. And even if someone gave it with anger, you can kind of go, that's their anger. But this money is for me. This money is love. And once it's in my hands, I can do whatever I want with that. That's mine. Same if it's inherited to you. It's been gifted. It's yours. You can love where it came from and you can adore them for their gift, but it's no longer theirs. It's no longer associated. It's yours, but it's the way in which you accept it and claim it. just the same as when you give it, it's like if you give it with frustration or displeasure, you're it's there's this feeling of like kind of you don't want it to continue to go, you don't want it to continue to flow, to be the money that it is, and you're extending that kind of sense of lack of joy, or lack as you pass it. But if you can, everything you purchase, you can be, I want to purchase that, I'm so excited to pass this money for that thing I want, I'm so happy to pay those taxes because I recognize I'm making lots of money, and that's how I'm contributing to society. I want to, pay for that car repair because I get to drive this wonderful car. It's like, take that money. So it's like, and then how that will transform the way our relationship with that money and the way that we receive it and give it. And I think that can really transform the whole sphere. But I also believe that the money itself holds energy, and the more that we cool like that, the love for it, it responds to that. It sits with us, being like in its joy. It's like if you thought of it as I don't know, that all of those experiments with plants where you say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and it grows really big. And then you put a sticker on it that says, I hate you, and the plant starts to die because our feeling affects the thing that we are tending to. And if we're we're custodians. We're in custody of money. And so when we have it in our hand, it's like, love that, because if you hate it, it will degrade. And so, it's multifaceted, our relationship to money.
Yes, I love that idea. And it makes me think again, sort of my relationship with Bitcoin and how it's helped me grow into that idea of thinking about sort of money energy as I need to embrace it with a sense of the opposite of lack, possibility and abundance, and that's such an essential concept, which I didn't really have access to somehow before before Bitcoin. And so that's that sense of abundance. And we've been so trained in so many ways as we grow up about a sense of lack. We see it in how our parents have had their relationship with money, especially maybe parents coming out of war situations. We see it also in the educational system, the sense of lack. And from that, that means taking away from others. If you have that sense of lack, then you need more and more, and that you take it from others. So that's a whole different kind of energy than this energy of abundance and joy of passing it on and joy of receiving it. And this is a journey that I'm like continually going on now. I'm getting better and better at it, and I'm feeling more and more abundant. And sometimes I fall down and I fall into that little hole of lack, and then, I get back up again. So it's, and again, that's like any relationship. There's that up and down, but each time you get further and deeper, and the relationship becomes more robust.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so much around that, because we're also told that that we're kind of not deserving, or you have to be deserving of money. So even when people try to imagine what it would be like to be in abundance, it's like, well, I don't really need that. I don't really need $5 million, or I'm not really, it's not like I work hard for that. I don't work hard enough, or actually I don't really have the skills to do that, or I never have money, so it's actually never going to be there. And so you're already dictating the future. You're already saying that somehow you're not deserving, and you're telling that story. because that sense of lack is just has got so pervasive within you, of just that you're just not deserving, you're just not valuable enough. And it's like, the problem is that money, the same words we use for money, value, worth, is the same words that we use for our own sense of being, value, worth. But our money is it's really about separating those two things. Like, how much you have in terms of your money has no impact on your inherent value or worth. And but that's like where the lack comes in, because why, if we felt in a state of lack, would we not have enough money? Well, only because we are associating those two things. So we feel that we're lacking internally, which then perpetuates lacking materially, because we've associated the two. If we disassociate, then our lack or our has nothing to do with how much money we can earn or have or bring into our life, because they are inherently separate. So you can call in as much money as you want. It makes no difference. It's nothing on you. There is no link. Just call it in. It's just an energy. Just go for it. Try it. But then there's the piece, okay, but I know that I feel lack. Okay, let's go there, right? And let's say, okay, what is it about this experience that you feel that you're not deserving of, or, you're not the center of? Or it's so interesting, because really our experience of reality starts within us. Like, we are born, we open our eyes, we breathe, we speak, and you don't think you have value. Well, without you, nothing exists for you. So you are the most valuable in yourself, because only through being in yourself are you experiencing this reality. And then you can go, okay, well, then I'm in a relationship with everyone else and we're sharing this earth. And how do I interact with others so that we can have a shared sense of value? But it starts with you. You're the one who's opening your eyes and talking. And so it's almost, sometimes it's like, how can you possibly imagine that you're not valuable? It's almost ridiculous to think that that's what we believe. And it's because of, like you say, like, taught things at school, like, you're not intelligent enough, you're not good as good as that person, don't look as pretty as that person, you haven't done this well, you've done that wrong. It's like this constant feeding of, like, putting you down or comparing you to others. But yeah, I think there is such a healing journey in just releasing all of those beliefs and starting just with you, just starting again.
Yeah. It's like I'm really feeling that. I'm really feeling that, what you just shared. Yeah, and that journey to abundance, and really feeling that and having that self-abundance. I'm good enough. I'm beautiful enough. I'm more, not enough. Even when I say enough, that's like there's somehow a limit there, but I am beautiful. I am intelligent. I am exactly who I should be. I mean, I'm just, and getting to that sense of abundance is our journey. Yeah.
And it really is just a feeling, right? It's just no one's quizzing you on it. Yeah, I am abundant. And then you can choose, do you want to have lots of money in your life? Do you want to attract that in? That's separate to your abundance, to your sense of personal abundance, personal value, totally separate. And then, but you have a choice of, do you want to welcome it in? Do you want to invite it in? And I think that's the beauty with Bitcoin as well. It's like, I mean, there's so much Bitcoin. Oh, there's 21 million, but each of those are 100 million Satoshis. Each Bitcoin is separated in 100 million Satoshis. So if you own one Bitcoin right now, you own 100 million Satoshis. We don't know what that's going to be worth in the future, but that's a lot. That sounds like a lot of whatever this money is, right? Whatever, 100 million is pretty high. So, it's like, there's just this feeling with Bitcoin. It's like there's lots here. There's an abundance here, but it is starting with that relationship. But then it's your sovereignty, it's your ownership, it's yours. It's not you, it's just yours, and it's abundant, and it can grow in
Mhm.
ways you cannot even imagine. But not only is it yours, and you are sovereign, and you are powerful, and you are unique, you are connected to all of these other people who are too.
Mm.
And this Bitcoin is traveling between you all. And there are people that have just stepped in and they're helping to make that network work. And it's
Mhm.
like, you don't have to, they are. And they, it's just, and they're not more powerful than you. They just choose to because they can get maybe more Bitcoin, or they just like that experience. But it's just like, I think that's the piece as well. It's like sovereignty in a network, individualism with collectivism.
Yes.
It's this jewel. It's like the nature of, oh, jewel. It's the nature of like the universe is having those two things at the same time. Mm.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That sort of sums it all up. That sovereignty, that individual sovereignty, and then sort of a community sovereignty, and how it's feeding each other, playing with each other, supporting each other. And so both are being held up high. That individualism and being the best you can be, the most authentic you can be, who you are, and then how you can contribute with that specialness that you have, with all the specialnesses of all the others that are within that community. Yeah, you need both.
I feel so excited because it's like it's even in these conversations, right? We're talking about Bitcoin. And so it's like a kind of, we're talking about our unique experience, but then our collective experience of something we're sharing, something we've shared and have found passion around. Um, so I love that.
Me too.
Ah, alrighty. Well, do you want to say the last bit?
Oh, yeah. If you enjoyed our conversation, please do hit the YouTube like, so that YouTube shares more of our conversations with the larger YouTube community. And also hit subscribe and then the little bell button and all. So you'll always be reminded when our videos go up.
And if you want to join the community, do go to thecryptoethic.com, or we're on Mighty Networks, which is the Crypto Ethic. And you can get in touch with us by by emailing us at info@thecryptoethic.com. And we have programs and courses coming up in 2023 that are really exciting. So much is going on. So we're going to be teaching about Bitcoin and about personal sovereignty and about your relationship to money. But there's other people who have come in. So I love this sort of decentralized piece as well, that are or distributed, are coming in and offering their courses too. So I've got a beautiful woman called Monica who's going to be teaching about how you find value in your chart, in your astrological chart. So where your personal relationship is with value and money. And another beautiful woman called Lara, who's going to explain how you can embody value, how you can embody this feeling of deep, nourishing, experiential value. So they're going to be available in 2023. So if you're interested, then email us or head over to the website to find out more.
Yay, I'm excited for 2023. All kinds of new possibilities.
All right. Thank you, Anja, for this lovely conversation. And I shall speak to you next time.
Yeah, thank you, Tansy. See you next time for more conversations.
Bye.
Ciao.